Hi, this is Nish from Why Be Aligned, and this Movement Monday we're actually moving away from the joints onto a muscle, and we're going to be talking about the diaphragm. So the diaphragm is a large muscle. It's dome-shaped when it's relaxed, and it sits at the base of the rib cage, just underneath the lungs and above our abdomen area. So it's going to have a huge impact on what's happening above and below. Your diaphragm plays a key role in our breathing mechanics, so that's what I'm going to be focusing on in this video. However, do keep in mind everything is connected. So if your diaphragm's not moving well, it is going to have an impact on what's going on beneath there. So under here, you've got a lot of key essential organs, and you've also got below those your pelvic floor. So if you're having issues with your breathing mechanics, it could actually be impacting your pelvic floor. Everyone thinks Kegels are the answer to the pelvic floor, but sometimes it can be worth looking just a little bit above and seeing what's happening in your diaphragm. So, breathing mechanics. When the diaphragm is relaxed, it's in this big extended dome shape. This is what you would be looking for when you're having your out breath. The room in the lungs has shrunk, and it's given the diaphragm more space to inhabit in that thoracic cavity area. And then when the diaphragm contracts, it flattens and moves downwards, as you can see here, and that gives the lungs a lot more room to open and inflate. Okay, so hopefully from those images, you've been able to get an idea of how the diaphragm moves, how it expands and contracts, and the impact that is having on the lungs. If your diaphragm comes down, it's giving those lungs room to inflate, but if it can't properly fully contract, then the lungs can never fully inflate. On the flip of that, if we can never just fully relax that diaphragm so it can come up into that lovely dome shape, we can never fully exhale, never fully let those lungs deflate. And not being able to reach those two ends of the spectrum in our breathing mechanics can have a real effect on the rest of our body too. So how do we combat this? It's tricky because we don't know if it's a case that your lungs can't expand fully and that's affecting your diaphragm, or if your diaphragm can't contract and relax, which is affecting your lungs. So my way of thinking is get everything in this thoracic cavity moving, and that's going to help the other. So with that in mind, we're going to do a breathing exercise, and breathing tends to sort of be another hot debated subject. Where should you breathe into? Should you breathe into the top of the lungs? Should you be breathing into the belly? Should you be breathing into the sides? I'm going to take you through a practice that helps you breathe into all of your lungs and your diaphragm and hopefully get everything moving together as one. Okay, I'm going to take you through a breathing exercise. I'm sitting down for this on a nice firm backed chair, and it's just so it gives me some support so that I don't have to focus on keeping myself up per se. If I was standing, I could be a bit wobbly. I'm wanting to put all my focus on what's happening in my lungs and in my diaphragm. So I'm sitting. You could sit on the floor, you could stand, you could lie down even for this. There's no right or wrong. And in terms of actual breathing, we're going to be breathing in through our nose and breathing out through our mouth. There's a lot of debate again about what's right with breathing, and I'm not going to get into all of that today. I like to breathe in through my nose because I feel it gives me the deepest breath, but breathing out, I like to have an image in mind of inflating a balloon when I breathe out, which I'll mention to you. So that's why we're breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. So initially, I just want you to put a hand on your chest and a hand on the bottom of your rib cage, so near your diaphragm area. And all I want you to do is just take a deep breath in and then a deep breath out. And I want you to have an awareness of when you're breathing in and out. Do you feel like the top hand is moving, and do you feel like the bottom hand is moving? And now I want you to place your hands on the base of each side of your rib cage. So my rib cage comes down like this, and I'm just going to pop a hand on each side of my ribs. And again, take a nice deep breath in and a breath out. And when you do that again, I just want you to now think about, are those hands moving at all when you breathe? I'm doing slightly shorter breaths here because of the length of the video, but if you can take as long and deeper breath as you like for this. Now, hopefully you would have felt some movement in your top hand, bottom hand, and both sides when you breathed. If you didn't, it shows that not everything is inflating as optimally as it could. Not a bad thing, but we're just looking to hopefully give you as much movement in those lungs as we can. Okay, so with this breathing practice, we're now going to be trying to inflate all of our lungs. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of breathing practices out there, and I'm not saying this is the one. It's just something I have found helpful in my breathing and to help me more aware and help everything sort of inflate and relax. So first of all, we're going to breathe into the base of the lungs and the top of the lungs. And when we're breathing into the base, I want you to imagine you had two hands, because we're going to have one hand here and one hand here. But I want you to imagine you had two hands and that you're trying to move them away from each other. And then that we're trying to move the top and bottom hands away from each other. So our in-breath, it's all about movement front to back and up and down. So I'm going to breathe into the base of my lungs first. So thinking about coming out the back as well, and then into the top of my lungs. So I'm getting this lifting, you can breathe out. I'm getting this lifting up here and this inflation here. So it's pulling these points away from each other and also opening this. So I'm getting a real front to back opening. So let's do that again. You're going to breathe into the base and into the top. And just make sure you're not pulling in too much here. Let that try and just open up and breathe out. Now we're going to focus on the out breath when we do it. So we've breathed into the base, into the top. And then I'm going to think about exhaling from the top first, like I'm breathing out of a balloon, breathing out, trying to fill up a balloon. So letting this relax. And then now when you get to the bottom of the out breath, you will think everything is out, but you should have a little bit more. So if I do that again, and then out the top, and then out the bottom. That little extra breath will give you another inch of flattening in this area. And that's going to really help with that extra. That is going to be allowing the diaphragm to come up and relax. And then front on, hands on either side of the rib cage, and you're going to breathe in. Think about trying to push those hands as far away from each other as possible. And as you breathe out, filling that balloon, all the air you can, and see how my hands have now moved into each other. So again, in, breathing away from each other. And then breathe out into each other. And once you've got a grip on those, try it all over. So you're going to breathe in to the base, and that's coming forward, it's going back, and it's coming out to the side. So at 360. And then at the top, everything's inflated. And then from the top down, everything's coming downwards and inwards. Just being careful when I say downwards that we're not collapsing our body down. Our shoulders stay where they are, stacked over our pelvis, but the rib cage gets a chance to relax. So you can see the back of, I'm not doing this, I'm just giving the bottom part a chance to sink down. So if you can get to grips with those breathing mechanics, it should help to really inflate throughout the lung and give the diaphragm a chance to really contract down and then deflate throughout the lung and let the diaphragm just come up and relax. Lying on the floor can be a nice way to experiment with it because it will mean you're a little bit more relaxed, but do try it sitting, standing and lying down and see how you get on. And don't forget to tune back in to Movement Monday next week for another bit of movement magic.